It is April 20th, 2007. A helicopter pilot spots a catamaran drifting in the Coral Sea, 80 miles off the coast of Queensland. No one on deck, no sign of distress, just drifting. The Coast Guard boards her 2 days later. What they find is strange enough that the official report uses the word eerie. The engine is running. The table is set for a meal, food laid out, flatware in place. A laptop computer sits open and powered on. 3 fishing lines trail off the stern. The radio is tuned to the International Distress Channel. No Mayday was ever sent. Everything is perfectly in order. The boat is called Kaz 2. Her crew, 3 men from Perth, Derek Batten, 56, and 2 brothers, Peter and James Tunstead, 69 and 63. They weren't professional sailors, but they knew what they were doing. They'd taken this boat out before, done 2 extended trips around the Whitsunday Islands. They had charts, provisions, a plan. They left Airlie Beach on April the 15th, heading for Townsville, the first leg of a long journey up the coast of Australia. The weather was fine. The sea was calm. When investigators boarded the vessel, they found no sign of struggle, no blood, no damage anywhere. All 3 life jackets, still on board. The emergency positioning beacons, still on board, untouched. One sail had been torn, the other was furled. The logbook's last entry was from the day they departed, 4 days of sailing, and nothing written down after that. The official conclusion, released 3 months later. 1 crew member fell overboard. The other 2 jumped in after him. All 3 drowned. It's a clean explanation. Tidy. But ask yourself this. These are men capable enough to take a catamaran around Australia. 1 falls overboard. The other 2 both jump in, without putting on a life jacket first, without triggering a beacon, without sending a mayday on a radio that was already tuned to the International Distress Channel. In calm weather, in the middle of the day, with no one at the helm to circle back. The fishing lines were still in the water. Nobody pulled them in. The food was still on the table. Nobody sat down. In 2012, marine investigators revisited the case. No new conclusions were reached. The Queensland Coroner's Inquest returned open findings, meaning the cause and manner of all 3 deaths were simply unknown. The laptop was still open when they found her, still running. Whatever was on the screen has never been publicly reported. 3 men were on a boat, and then they weren't. The engine kept running, the table stayed set, the lines stayed in the water. As if the boat was still waiting for them to come back. Nobody did. It is December the 5th, 1948. 2 aircraft are flying over New Mexico at night. 1 is civilian, 1 is military. They have no contact with each other. Different routes, different altitudes. Both crews see the same thing. A brilliant green ball of fire. Not a meteor. It moves too level, too controlled. It doesn't arc downward. It doesn't tumble or fragment. It crosses the sky in a flat trajectory and vanishes below the horizon, still burning. 3 days later, 2 more pilots see the same thing over the same region. The sightings continue. For 2 solid years, green fireballs appear repeatedly over New Mexico, and almost exclusively over the most sensitive military installations in the United States. Los Alamos, where the atomic bomb was designed and built, Sandia National Laboratories, White Sands Missile Range, the places where America kept its deepest secrets. Whatever these things are, they appear to be watching. By January 1949, the concern is serious enough to put in writing. A letter from 4th Army Headquarters to the Air Force states, and this is a direct quote, that the fireballs may be the result of radiological warfare experiments by a foreign power, and that they are of such great importance, especially as they are occurring in the vicinity of sensitive installations, that a scientific board should study the situation. A secret conference is convened at Los Alamos in February 1949. The attendees include Joseph Kaplan, a physicist from UCLA; Edward Teller, the man who built the hydrogen bomb; Lincoln La Paz, the country's leading authority on meteors; officers from Project Sign, the Air Force's classified UFO investigation program. They cannot explain what they are seeing. La Paz is the most troubled. He has spent his career studying meteors. He knows how they move, how they burn, what they look like from the ground. These, he says, are not meteors. The colour is wrong. A flat, pure emerald green. Nothing like the white yellow of a natural fireball. The trajectory is wrong. Too horizontal, too consistent over too great a distance. They don't fragment. They don't fade. They cross the sky and disappear intact. Project Twinkle is set up in 1950 specifically to photograph and track the fireballs. Observation stations are established across New Mexico, cameras loaded and staffed. The fireballs stop appearing while the cameras are running. When Project Twinkle is shut down in 1951, its final report is classified. The conclusion, as far as has been released, inconclusive. No identification, no satisfactory explanation, no theory that accounts for all the evidence. The green fireballs remain officially unexplained. Some related documents remain partially classified to this day. No foreign power has ever claimed responsibility. Soviet records reviewed after the Cold War ended show nothing matching the descriptions. American records show nothing either. They appeared over the most secret military sites in the country for 2 straight years. They were seen by pilots, scientists, physicists, military officers, professionals who knew exactly what an anomaly looked like. And then they stopped. Whatever they were watching, they either found what they came for, or they decided we weren't worth the attention anymore. In the grounds of Shugborough Hall in Staffordshire, England, there is a stone monument built in the 1740s. It shows a carved relief, a mirror image of a painting by Nicolas Poussin, one of the most cryptic artists who ever lived. 3 shepherds stand around a stone tomb in an idyllic landscape. On the tomb, an inscription in Latin, Et in Arcadia ego. Even in paradise, I am here, death speaks. Below the relief, carved into the stone, is a sequence of letters. O, U, O, S, V, A, V, V. And below those, slightly apart, 2 more. D and M. That is the entirety of it. 10 letters, no explanation attached, no key recorded, no letter in any archive, no entry in any diary explaining what they mean. In the 280 years since they were carved, no one has satisfactorily solved them. Charles Darwin examined the inscription. He could not decode it. Charles Dickens tried. He failed. In 2004, cryptographers from Bletchley Park, the people who broke the Enigma machine during World War II, who dismantled the most sophisticated cipher system ever built, sat down with these 10 letters and went home with nothing. It has been called one of the world's great uncracked ciphertexts, not because it is long or mechanically complex, and as such it is 10 letters, but because no one can agree on even the right approach. Is it a cipher, an acronym, a private dedication, a coordinate, a confession? Nothing proposed so far has held up to scrutiny. The painting beneath the inscription makes things stranger. The version carved here is a mirror image of Poussin's original, deliberately reversed. Someone made that choice. Poussin himself was the subject of centuries of obsessive study, with scholars arguing his paintings encoded secret information about suppressed religious truths, hidden lineages, buried sites of enormous significance. Whether any of that is real, the people who commissioned this monument clearly thought it mattered. The DM carved below sits lower, slightly separate, as if belonging to a different register of meaning. In Latin tombstone inscriptions, DM stands for dis manibus, to the spirits of the dead. It appears on Roman gravestones across the ancient world. But the 8 letters sandwiched above it, OUOSVAVV, don't resolve into any Latin phrase anyone can find, or English, or any other language yet tried. Theories have accumulated for nearly 3 centuries. A message from the Knights Templar, a cipher pointing to the Holy Grail, a Masonic dedication, a private love letter, an anagram of a religious verse, a joke carved by a bored estate craftsman. None has been proven. Most fall apart quickly. The monument stands at Shugbrook Gaucher today, open to visitors. The National Trust manages the estate. You can walk up to it, study the letters, touch the stone. They are just letters. Ordinary sandstone, slightly weathered. OUOSVAVV. The Bletchley Park codebreakers went home with nothing. Darwin couldn't solve it. Dickens couldn't solve it. The finest cryptographic minds of the 20th century produced no agreed answer. Maybe it means something that would shake everything. Maybe it's a private message between 2 people who died 300 years ago and took the meaning with them. Either way, 3 centuries of silence, and the stone is still waiting. On the afternoon of August the 4th, 1990, 2 hikers were walking in the Scottish Highlands near the village of Calveen. What happened next, they photographed. The craft was enormous, diamond-shaped, perfectly symmetrical, hovering in complete silence over the Scottish hills. No sound, no exhaust, no visible propulsion of any kind. It simply hung in the air, motionless. They estimated it at roughly 100 feet across. They took 6 photographs. In at least one of those photographs, an RAF Harrier jet appears in the same frame. Clearly airborne, clearly in the vicinity, and clearly dwarfed by the object beside it. The military aircraft provides scale. Whatever this was, it was large enough to make a fast jet look small by comparison. The hikers sent the photographs to the Daily Record newspaper. The newspaper forwarded them to the British Ministry of Defence. The Ministry of Defence classified them for 50 years. Nick Pope ran the MOD's UFO investigation desk throughout the 1990s. He reviewed thousands of reported sightings during that time, most of them mundane, most of them explainable. He described the Calvine photographs as the best evidence he had seen in his entire career. Multiple frames, high resolution, a large structured craft, and a military aircraft in frame for scale. No ambiguity, no blurriness, no question of misidentification. He had a poster-sized print made for the wall of his office. When he left the ministry, he kept a copy. The witnesses never came forward publicly. The Daily Record held their names. 2 people walked into the Scottish hills, photographed something that apparently concerned the British government enough to classify it for half a century, and then returned to their lives and said nothing. They have never been identified. They have never spoken. In 2022, a copy of one photograph was released ahead of the official declassification. Accidentally, according to the MOD, the image showed exactly what Pope had described. A large, structured, diamond-shaped object against a Scottish sky, the Harrier clearly visible in frame. The photograph was sharp and unambiguous. No explanation was attached to the release. The MOD's official position, stated consistently across decades, is simply that the Calvine incident remains unexplained. Not a weather balloon, not a known aircraft type, not any natural atmospheric phenomenon. The MOD's own word, unexplained. The Harrier pilot who flew near Calveen that afternoon has never come forward. If they filed a report, it has not been released. Whatever they saw through the cockpit glass, whatever came up alongside them in the sky over Scotland, they kept it. 6 photographs. A craft estimated at 100 feet across, a military intercept caught on film, and a 50-year classification order. 50 years is a specific choice, not 30, which is the standard window for sensitive government documents, not 25. 50. Someone calculated that 50 years was the minimum distance needed before this particular information could safely be made public. We're now past that threshold. The photograph has been released. The incident is officially acknowledged as unexplained. And still, nobody knows what it was. The 2 hikers are still silent. The pilot never spoke. Whatever hovered over Scotland that afternoon left 6 photographs and no other trace. What it was looking at, we don't know either. It is August 1485. Henry Tudor has just won the Battle of Bosworth, ending the Wars of the Roses, placing himself on the throne of England as Henry VII. His army is barely home before people start dying. They call it the sweating sickness, and it kills in hours. The symptoms begin without warning. A sudden wave of apprehension, not illness exactly, just dread. Then cold shivers, violent shaking, headache, and pain in the neck and shoulders. That stage lasts half an hour, maybe 3. Then the sweat comes. It breaks out all at once, soaking everything. Heat, delirium, thirst, the pulse hammering, and then the final symptom, the one physicians feared most, the urge to sleep. If you fell asleep, you died. John Caius, a physician who witnessed the 1551 outbreak firsthand, wrote the only detailed account we have. He described patients who seemed to be recovering, the worst of the sweating over, the fever dropping, who simply closed their eyes and never opened them again. The disease ran its course in a single day. You either survived or you didn't. And surviving one attack meant nothing. The same person could catch it, recover, catch it again, and die the second time. Over 66 years, England was struck 5 times. 1485, 1508, 1517, 1528, 1551. The disease moved fast, sweeping through a town in days, then vanishing. It hit the wealthy and educated as hard as the poor, which was unusual. The plague killed the crowded. The sweat killed everyone. Cardinal Wolsey caught it twice. Henry VIII fled London in terror when it arrived in 1517, abandoning the court, retreating to the countryside. During that same epidemic, his close friend, William Compton, was dead within a day. In 1528, the sweating sickness crossed the English Channel for the first and only time. It tore through Hamburg, then Germany, the Low Countries, Scandinavia, tens of thousands dead in weeks. Then it retreated back to England for one final epidemic in 1551 and vanished forever. Nobody knows why it disappeared. Nobody knows what it was. The most compelling modern theory suggests a hantavirus, a family of viruses transmitted by rodents, capable of causing hemorrhagic fever with rapid onset. It would explain the speed, the sweating, the pulmonary symptoms physicians described, but hantaviruses don't spread person to person the way the sweat did. It moved through households, through court circles, through armies. It behaved like a contagion. No pathogen has ever been conclusively identified. No samples survive from the 16th century. We have only the descriptions and the silence after 1551. Henry VIII was paranoid about it his entire reign. He moved constantly between palaces during outbreaks, dismissed entire households, refused visitors. A man who commanded armies and executed wives, undone by a sweat. In 1517, 2 sons of the Duke of Suffolk died within a single hour of each other. Their names were Henry and Charles Brandon. One morning they were alive, one afternoon they were not. The sweat came 5 times over 66 years. It killed some of the most powerful people in England, and then it was done. We still don't know what it was. No pathogen, no origin, no explanation for why it stopped. Just the accounts. And the absolute silence after 1551. Whatever it was. It decided we were finished with it. It is the evening of August 15th, 1951. In the small town of Pont-Saint-Esprit in the south of France, people start acting strangely. By midnight, it is chaos. A woman believes her body is on fire. A man runs into the street screaming that he is being chased by tigers. An 11-year-old boy tries to strangle his own mother. A man on the second floor of his apartment, convinced he is an airplane, throws himself out the window. He dies on the street below. The local doctor will call it the night of apocalypse. La nuit d'apocalypse. By morning, more than 250 people are ill. 50 are committed to psychiatric asylums. 7 are dead. It begins, as most things do, with bread. The town's baker, Rochebriand, has been using flour supplied by a local mill. In the weeks before the outbreak, bakers across the region complained about the flour. Grey and sticky, forming an acid dough, making bread that looked and smelled wrong. Nobody acted on the complaints. On August the 16th, Briand's customers start arriving at the town's doctors. Nausea, vomiting, cold chills. Then, within days, the hallucinations begin. The official investigation concludes quickly. Ergot, a fungal contamination of grain, is blamed. Ergot had caused mass outbreaks throughout European history, producing convulsions and hallucinations when consumed in quantity. The flour from the mill was the common thread. The explanation fits. Case closed. The village recovers. The story fades. For 50 years. In 2009, an American investigative journalist named Hank Albarelli publishes a book. In it, he claims to have found declassified CIA documents that tell a very different story. According to Albarelli, Pont-Saint-Esprit was not an accident. It was an experiment. The documents he cites describe a covert operation involving the CIA and the Army Chemical Corps, testing the mass effects of LSD on an unknowing civilian population. Pont-Saint-Esprit, with its single-source flour supply and isolated community, was the target. The ergot explanation was a cover story, partially plausible, engineered to satisfy investigators. The actual agent was LSD, introduced into the flour supply. The French government has never acknowledged this. The CIA has never confirmed it. Ergot remains the official explanation. But here is what is harder to dismiss. Ergot poisoning does not typically produce what happened in Pont-Saint-Esprit. Ergot causes convulsions, gangrene, a burning sensation in the limbs, the medieval affliction known as St. Anthony's fire. It does not make men believe they are airplanes. It does not make children attack their mothers. What happened in Pont-Saint-Esprit looks far more like a high-dose psychedelic event than an ergotism outbreak. The CIA's MKUltra program, documented, confirmed, partially declassified, ran from 1953 to 1973. It included covert LSD experiments on unwitting subjects. American prisoners, mental patients, foreign nationals. Pont-Saint-Esprit in 1951 would predate MKUltra's formal start. Albarelli argues it was a precursor, a field test, a proof of concept. A test of what happens when you dose an entire town and watch. 7 people died in Pont-Saint-Esprit. 50 lost their minds. Others reported effects lasting years. No one was ever charged. No official inquiry has revisited the conclusion. The town by the Rhône went back to making bread. Whether it was a fungus or a government or both, what is certain is this. Something turned an ordinary French town into a scene one doctor compared to the apocalypse. Something made a man believe he could fly. The bread was cursed. That much? Everyone agreed. What put the curse in it? Nobody has ever fully answered.